Hello again, welcome back. Um, so, as you may or may not have noticed, I'm kind of changing my style in terms of my videos. Instead of doing all of like the dating tips, which some people thought were funny, some people didn't. I've actually decided to do a few more social commentaries, if you will, like my last video, and this video is actually going to follow suit. The topic for this discussion is actually going to be the education that children seem to be receiving these days. Or, I guess, a better term for it would be lack of education, because there are many people who don't seem to know basic, basic common knowledge things that they really ought to know, such as having a conversation with someone about a popular book series that was originally Swedish and has since been turned into movies, which were also originally Swedish and has since become Americanized with a very popular debut here in America. I still have not seen the American version yet. Call it a bias. But regardless, I was discussing this series with someone, and I, I was telling them, I said, well, I've only seen the Swedish version of the movie. I haven't seen the American version. She said, oh, I didn't know it was Swedish. I said, mm-hmm, yeah, the author is so and so, and I've made it about halfway through the book, but I've seen all three of the Swedish movies. And this person looked at me and then proceeded to ask, what country do they speak Swedish in again? Yeah, that was a legitimate question. To which I actually had to inform them that Sweden is the country that they are thinking of, because you do in fact speak Swedish in Sweden. Kind of makes sense with, the whole language, and, half of the country's name is in the language. Just saying. As well as asking me um, where they speak Dutch. I said, they speak that in the Netherlands. The what? Holland. The place with the tulips and the wooden shoes and the windmills? Yeah, that place. And I then had to actually inform them that, because apparently they had seen somewhere about a country called Dutchland. I said, no, that is in fact Deutschland, and that is the German name for their country, Germany. So, on that note, I'm sorry, I have a hard time keeping a straight face when I think of questions like that. It's it's funny, but at the same time it's very sad. It's very, very sad that people my age and people older don't know these common things, these common knowledge things, like speaking Dutch in Holland, which is now commonly referred to as the Netherlands. Yeah. And, common geography other people don't know about certain American wars, which, granted, I found American history to be incredibly fucking boring. Like, you could literally see drool coming out of my mouth. It was that boring. However, I still managed to pass all of my American history classes and retain a little bit of the information, such as who fought in the American Revolution. Really? Really? Or who fought in the French and Indian War? Okay, for those of you who don't know, obviously the American Revolution, oh, I'm not even gonna go into that one. The French and Indian War. Yes, the French and the Indians did fight in it, but they did not fight against one another. They fought together. Yeah. I'm just so incredibly happy that this person didn't ask me such things as who fought in the Civil War. Like I said, the lack of education is quite frightening. Um, to further exemplify this, I've had grown people ask me what is a dozen. Grown people, because I was telling them about a special that we had where you can get a dozen muffins of your choice. You can mix and match any flavors you want. You get an entire dozen for about $7 and some change. The woman looked at me and said, "What's that?" I said, "Muffins?" She said, "No, the other thing." "A dozen?" "Yeah, what's that?" "A dozen?" Dot, dot, dot. She continued to look at me perplexed and did the little head tilt thing. Like, if I keep tilting my head, maybe an epiphany will hit. No, no. I finally had to break down and explain dozen means 12 muffins. This was a grown woman. Grown woman. At least in her 30s or 40s. I mean, I can understand people not knowing what a baker's dozen is, and especially not the history behind it. But a regular dozen? I thought we were all taught that in elementary school. I thought that was basic vocabulary that everybody knew. But apparently not. So, yeah. And then let's see here. Explaining bratwurst to people. Yeah, bratwurst, German type sausage. Not the same kind of sausage that Americans are used to, but similar. It's still very similar. Um, had another experience. I was explaining that it was this brand of bratwurst on little mini rolls. Someone looked at me and said, rump roast? I said, no ma'am, bratwurst. Rump roast? No ma'am, bratwurst. And before she could say rump roast again, I obviously could see that it wasn't sinking in. So I cut her off just as she was about to say rump roast again. I said, German sausage. To which she said, oh, it doesn't taste like sausage to me. And then there's also the hummus experience that I actually had the other day. I explained that it was classic hummus on New York style bagel crisps or chips, whatever. And the gentleman proceeded to ask me several times who, not even what, who, because I said hummus. I said, who? I said it is a Mediterranean style dip made out of mashed chickpeas. And as he proceeded to shove it in his mouth, he made a very dissatisfied noise. Really? Okay. So then, why are you eating it if it's so disgusting? But it astounds me that people don't seem to know these basic common knowledge things that I thought were, I guess, common. Uh, it's not even about, being adventurous or living in other places, because God knows I've lived in this state my entire life. The only thing that has changed is I went from north to south. That's all that's changed. But I mean, at the same time, it is a big difference, but it's not, because in general, people in this entire region are just stupid. I'm sorry, they're just stupid. If you don't know basic things, such as the ones that I've listed, then you're ignorant. And you clearly haven't ventured much past exploring your own asshole. I mean, really. The whole dozen thing and not knowing which languages are spoken in certain countries. Like, okay, I can understand not knowing all the different dialects in China or even Japan, or knowing all the different languages that are spoken in certain countries that speak multiple languages, or not knowing what they speak in certain African countries. That's fine. I can forgive you that because it's not always common knowledge. But Sweden, the Netherlands, Germany, for Christ's sakes, come on. And not knowing certain wars from your own history. like I said, American history bored me to death too, but the last time that I took an American history class, I made a 90 in it. So it really can't be that difficult. Why don't you pick up a book, or if you're really that fucking lazy, go Google some shit and start exploring the world around you. Because, so help me God, if another person asks me another idiotic question, I'm going to have to walk away for fear of the knee-jerk reaction I'm going to have, such as to punch them. Like, my faith in humanity is just about gone. It really is. I don't know what else to say. Don't. So, since I've reached the point where I think I've sufficiently covered the lack of education and the lack of common knowledge, at least particularly in my area, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video. Thank you for listening, and hopefully some of y'all will agree with me and can understand my point of view, because quite frankly, it still baffles me. Still. So, hopefully you will join me again for another video, and I will see you guys soon. Bye!